Hey Facebook Live, my name's David Rao. I'm the music teacher who blogs at makemomentsmatter.org. You can also find my ideas obviously here on Facebook. I'm on Instagram if you're watching live on Instagram, and a variety of other places. I have a podcast that I'm really excited about. It just was published on Google Play, so you can find it if you listen on your Android device. Really exciting things. I'm hoping to get it on Spotify. We'll see if that happens soon. But I'm excited to sit here with you and share a little bit tonight. I'm going to do things just a little bit differently than normal because my lessons are sort of changed. I'm actually on fall break this week. I'm sort of on a weird schedule. My school does sort of more of a balanced calendar, I think some people call it, where I have a longer school year, but I have longer breaks. So I started with students on August 1st, but I get this full week off. I have a full week off in November, a full week off in February, and a full week off in April. But I go from the beginning of August to very late May. In fact, my post-planning rolls over to like June 1st or something. But anyway, that means that I get this week off. So the lessons that I shared with you last Monday, my K-5 lessons, I will continue doing those next week. I did them all last week. I will do them next week. And so my lessons haven't changed, so it doesn't make sense for me to go back and redo all of the K-5 overview at the beginning of the video. Instead, I thought I would share just a couple books that I love using with movement exploration lessons, share just a couple ideas about how I use those movement books, and then share with you my third grade lesson for the week. I haven't yet shared about third grade on these live videos. So I'm planning to do those couple quick books and then share with you about third grade, the composition activity that I'm doing with them, sort of a composition and arranging activity, and how I'm going to incorporate that into my concert cycle coming up in November. So a lot of stuff to talk about, so let me just jump right in. As always, if you have questions, please leave them in the comments, because the more people talk, the more we get a conversation going, and the more it's more like a music ed community instead of just me sitting in front of my phone and my iPad in my home office talking to myself. So the more that you leave comments, the more that we'll get to interact. If you have ideas about how these lessons might work for you, please leave those comments. If you have ideas about what you might do different, please leave those comments. You're not going to be able to do everything exactly the way I do it, and that's okay. So I wanted to share with you these quick books that I love. I haven't seen them at music ed conferences recently, but maybe they've been around for forever and ever, and I'm just now finding them. That's possible, but maybe you are too. So the first book I wanted to share with you is this book called Stretch. It's by Doreen Cronin, and Scott mentioned it's by the author of Click Clack Moo and The Cows That Type. And if you like this book, it's a super duper fun book. I have a link already on my links page, so if you're a Facebook person, you go to the comments, down at the bottom of the comments, or the caption for the video, there should be a link that says, like, Musical Mondays links. And if you're on Instagram, there's a link in my profile. But this book is so much fun, so if you want to get it, there's a link to it already on my website. But it's super fun, and I like using it to encourage movement. I also think it's really great to use, like, at the beginning of like a chorus rehearsal, or maybe if you use it just with your little kids as something to start a lesson or to start a jumping off point. And let me just read just a little bit of it. It goes, stretch with me, hands in the air, count to 3, hold it right there. And this is even fun because he's in crisscross applesauce, so like you could do this in a circle or whatever if you start. And you can see the animals have stretched up. Super cute. Stretch out high for a snack in the trees. Stretch out wide for a ride on the breeze. Can you stretch to the ceiling? Can you stretch to the floor? Can you stretch with a whisper? Can you stretch with a roar? Like already I bet you're probably like, I can see 45 things I can do with this. I think it's fun because a lot of times I think people incorporate like traditional choral warm-ups into their chorus rehearsals, and those can get a little bit boring for kids, and so this is a chance for them to stretch. You could incorporate vocal glides in there. You could go, woo! We're stretching our voice. You could actually stretch your body. There are a lot of fun things you could do. It's not very long, and by the time you get to the end, there are a lot of different things where it asks you to stretch in a wave, stretch underwater, stretch on my surfboard, stretch to show you spots, stretch to show you feathers. So there are a lot of things that you could include if you wanted, but it also has pictures that look like a lot of books that they've seen, and so it's probably one that they'll think is super duper fun. So this book, Stretch by Doreen Cronin and Scott Mention, and I'm sorry again because I'm doing this on my FaceTime cameras on my iPad and iPhone, it's all backwards, but I have the link to that in the in the video notes already. And if you can't find it or whatever, just send me an email. My email's makemomentsmatter@gmail.com, and I'll send it to you. But I already have it linked, obviously, on Amazon because that's where I get everything. So it's on my special wish list on Amazon that's open for people to see, and you can go and find that if you want. But I love this because it's movement, and you could make it less moving around the room or more moving around the room. You could have them stretch from their crisscross applesauce spot or from their personal space spot, or they could stretch as they move, whatever you want to do. I think it's a cool option. Another one that I use that I found this summer at an art walk. I was doing an art walk in a nearby town, and one of the things that we would do is sort of go in and out of buildings. There was this cute little shop, and it had like all this yoga stuff in it, but it had a kids section, and of course I go there, and I spend forever there. Good luck getting me out of Barnes & Noble kids section. But I found this book called Boogie Monster, and it's by Josie Bissett. I don't know how you exactly say that, but it's super cute. So let me just read just a couple pages of this, and then tell you how I've been using it and how maybe you would use it differently. So Boogie Monster, and it starts like this. Let's see if you can see on the screen. I've come from planet Boogie today. My mission with you is to dance and play. I've heard you're a boogie monster like me. You've got your own moves. I can't wait to see. I've traveled the universe nearby and far, and I've heard just how perfectly special you are. Did you know that nobody else dances the same? So please take a bow and tell me your name. And so at this point in the lesson, with like my kinders and my first, I jump in and I do like I could like, hello, student, or tell me your name. And then they could sing back if they want. If you want, it's an option there. But it fits right in. And then it goes, it's so nice to meet you. Are you ready to dance? Let's start by imagining ants in our pants. Then wiggle and jiggle your hips, knees, and shins. And that's just the way that this boogie begins. I love this also because you're asking kids to imagine and think about these things that are not actually happening, but they're thinking about them, and they're thinking about what they would do, how they would move if that were happening to them. And that's sort of cool because you're asking them to transfer the idea of that thing happening and then to put it into movement, which is exciting. That's critical thinking, by the way, if your admin wants it. Remember, with dancing, there's no wrong or no right or wrong. So you can dance to the music or sing your own song. You can shake all around like a happy wet dog or roll down the hill like a runaway log. So this book goes on and on and on. And there's a lot of descriptive language. There's a lot of really fun pictures. There's the adult Boogie Monster and the little kid Boogie Monster. And just so many options. With dancing, there's never a wrong way to do it. You do what you please, and that's all there is to it. Only you know the way that your dancing should be, so please keep it coming. We'd all like to see. And then it goes on. I just love that so much of the book is about kids learning to dance and then being okay with however it is they're dancing. I feel like so often we prescribe these ideas of like how you should move or what's the correct way. And this is really asking kids to explore. It's asking them to try different things and to see what they feel is right, and saying that like, if you're moving, you're probably right. Like there are just so many ways to do it. So I love Boogie Monster for that. What I do after I would use this book, like my next thing, and it ties sort of into something I've already done with kids. I would say like, okay, well, one of my goals for the kids is for them to learn their family, their team, because each of my classes there are 4 teams: strings, woodwinds, percussion, and brass, and I break them up into those teams at the beginning of the year, and all throughout the year, if we have a group activity or something, I break them back down into those teams so that it makes it easy to separate out kids. So one of the activities I do at the beginning of the year is like to help them remember their team, is that we move to music, and when the music stops, you have to walk back and go sit with your team in 4 different corners of the room. Well, you could do anything with that. So I have contrasting music that they move to. I say you can't move the same way twice. So if you're hopping one time, you can't hop the next time. You got to do something different. And it encourages them to move however they want. This is also a chance for me to say like, ooh, I love how you're moving. Oh, I love how you're moving your feet. Oh, you're using your knees. That's so great. Oh my gosh, your hair is moving too. And you're encouraging kids to try out different things and see what works for them and see what they like. And say like, all of those things are great. And this gives you a good jumping off point for that. It also encourages you to teach movement rules. So you could say like, oh, I'm so impressed with how you're moving without touching anyone else. I love how you're moving through the space in your own personal space. You can include some of those movement parameters and how the rules work so that the kids are doing a really great job and having fun. And then it also reinforces those teams. So when the music stops, they can go back to their spot. So some of the music that I've used, here are a couple options. I like pulling music from soundtracks. So like this is from WALL-E by the Pixar movie. The music's by Thomas Newman, but it's sort of a fun, weird thing for them to move to. So let's see if it'll play. So kids don't really know how to move to this one at first, and usually it ends up with them stomping and moving to the steady beat, which is fine. But I also have them listen to other things, and it's sort of waving, and it's different. So that's fun. You can find a lot of fun soundtrack music, and that's really cool. Another one that I found, I really like the composer Thomas Newman, who does a lot of movies and things. This is another one from, oh gosh, I can't remember exactly which movie this is, but it's called To Hillcrest. And I love this one because it does give them really a good steady pulse, but it's calm. It's not like a lullaby, it's not like super duper slow, but it just has them move in a calm fashion around the room. They like that one. You could use, there are some really fun ones like this one from Finding Nemo. This one is great to pair with something like Stretch because it really does feel like stretching and flowing and moving gently. And then I also throw in things that maybe they know or maybe they don't. You could do something like this for a march. This is the Billboard March. It's done by the U.S. Coast Guard, and so it's free, easy to get a copy, but it's on Spotify. All the stuff I use is on Spotify. It just makes it easier for me to stream it. And then there's this one is a really fun one. They like this one. A lot of them don't know what it is to begin with. I know what it is, but they don't always know. So that's really fun to get them moving in different ways. One thing that I also say is that as you're moving, if it's an angry song, your face can't be going like this. If you're moving angry, your face can't be happy, so your face needs to match. Or if it's silly, your whole body needs to be silly, not just your face. Because, some kids who are like, and they think that's silly. I'm like, yeah, well, it's just your face. You need to have your whole body be silly. And so it's fun to ask them to do that. This is a great example. When you play this music, they can immediately sort of pull out the character of this, and they're like, yeah, it's Star Wars. And I'll say, okay, and is this part of the movie an exciting part? Is it an exploration part? Is it scary? Is it angry? Which is it? And they'll, tell me different answers, and I say, great, whatever you think it is, put that movement into your body and your face. And so then they go through and they try it and they have a good time. And they get to try however they want. But again, Boogie Monster is a great jumping off point because it gives them so much reinforcement about whatever it is that they're doing. It's a good way to move. It's a good thing to try. And there's one more that I want to show you that I wasn't sure I was going to show you tonight or not, but it fits so perfectly. Because the last one, Boogie Monster, is, this monster who comes from outer space or whatever to get kids to move. This book called Czar is by my friend Dino Odell. And I actually worked in my church's preschool a couple years ago with Dino, and Dino is so good, and he does, if you live in Kansas City, you should get him come do a young artist concert with your kids, because it's great. He incorporates math and reading and whatever that the principal and the classroom teachers love, but so much good music stuff too. So this book is actually based on a song that he wrote, and it's called Czar, and it sort of starts like this. One evening as I was walking through the park with my friends, we heard a strange noise. Now, you could read what the noise says. Bumble fizz, grumble, bumble fizz. Or you could have kids make a strange noise, like say like, ooh, it sounds sort of creepy, like maybe sort of like a machine, or maybe like something spongy. I don't, you could give them adjectives or whatever. It's fun to have them create the noise. Or you could use instruments if you wanted, I guess. We looked under rocks and in bushes, but we couldn't find anything. And then one of my friends saw it. Over there, above the tree, floating above the highest branches was, and then this is hilarious because before class starts, I take a little picture of an alien and I go tape it up on the wall. And so I point to a place that like we don't normally look, like above the clock or whatever. And there it is. But it goes, a spaceship, a UFO, a flying saucer. It was shiny with flashing green, blue, and yellow lights. And then it started to make a weird noise. Crash! We ran to the crash site, and when we arrived, a green guy was climbing out of the spaceship. He looked at us with his 3 eyes, and then he spoke to us with his 2 mouths. Anyway, it goes on, and he speaks in an alien language, and luckily our friend studied alien in college, and he said, my name is Czar, and my spaceship is broken down, and I need your help. And what I need you to do is to push this button with your finger. And so you push with a steady beat with your finger, and that's going to help Czar's spaceship come back. And kids at first are like, what? And I say, in computer lab, you have that computer keyboard with all those buttons, and if you press a button, something happens on the computer. If you press a different button, something else happens. If you press a different button, something else happens. And it's the same with Czar's spaceship. If you press the button, maybe that'll make the landing gear come out, or maybe that'll make the jetpacks turn on, or maybe that'll turn the lights on, or I don't know. But Czar knows, and Czar's telling us to push with our finger. So we're pressing with our finger. And then he says, push this button with your foot. With your what? With your foot. If we all push a button, we can fix Czar's ship. Push these buttons with your finger and your foot. So now you've got your finger going and your foot going. You can't see my foot's going. It's sort of like that old poem, the button. Hi, my name is Joe, and I work in a button factory. I have a wife, a son, and a family. I hate that poem, so this is like the version of it that I like, where kids are moving and pressing with their finger and their foot, and then they press with their elbow, and then they press with their knee, and then they press, it's working, but not fast enough, and it says, Czar has a lunch date on Mars, we need to hurry. Then you push with your nose. So if you're imagining kids that are like doing this with their whole body, it's hilarious to watch. It's worth buying the book just for that. And then you push with your bottom, and then you push with your tongue. And all of these things make Czar's ship come back on. So I do this, and then it goes, now push those buttons even faster, even faster, even faster. And so it's fun because kids get to do that and get to go faster and faster, and they like the challenge. They think it's hilarious. But I also like it because they're moving in lots of different ways. They don't have to be moving around the room. They can be doing it right in their spot. And they think that it's super, super fun. So this book, Czar and the Broken Spaceship, by Dina Odell, Dinosaur Odell, I'll put a link to that. I didn't include the link to that on my notes, but I will include that. But what I will also say is I did a whole blog post about this, how I use it in my classroom. I'll include that in the notes afterwards as well. There's also a free YouTube video. This, like I said, this book was based on a song Dino wrote. And there's an album called, I think, Itty Bitty Monsters, where you can buy a whole CD of his music. It's really good. But Czar is one of the songs on there. And then he made a video to go along with it. It's free on YouTube. If you don't buy the book or don't, go and buy his CD, you can use the video on YouTube, and it's great. So I'll put a link to that as well. And that's fun because they sing along, and there are some little background alien singers, which are hilarious, and the kids like them. And then you can push all the buttons with your finger and your nose and whatever, and it gives you those prompts as you go. So super fun book. So those 3 books that I went through, I'll just show you one more time, but I'll put the links in the notes for this video so that you can see those later as well. So the book Stretch by Doreen Cronin and Scott Minchin, the author of Click Clack Moo, Cows That Type. There was Boogie Monster by Josie Bissett, I think, illustrated by Kevin Atterbury. I don't know. I'll put the link to that as well. Don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. And then Czar and the Broken Spaceship by Dina Odell, illustrations by Santiago Hermano. And I'll put the link to that too. So 3 super fun books, and I love using books for movement. It just gives such descriptive language. It helps kids connect movement to art, the illustrations in the book. It helps kids connect movement to the music. And so there are a lot of jumping off things that you can do with those songs that are really super fun. So check the links in the recap of the video so that you can sort of see how I use those if you want. Well, I wanted to show you my 3rd grade lesson. I haven't done a 3rd grade lesson for these live videos yet, and so I wanted to share that. But I also wanted to share it because my 3rd graders are getting ready for their concert. I have a concert with the 3rd grade like the week before our Thanksgiving break. Because of our wonky schedule, like this week off and a bunch of other things, I see kids 4 more rotations between now and then, which seems absolutely nuts, but it's the way my schedule works. And so I hate like that I'm singing Christmas music with my 4th grade and that I'm, working on Thanksgiving music with some other kids, and it just feels inauthentic and I don't like it, but I can't change it yet. So one of the things that I'm doing is I'm trying to include some of the more normal stuff that I would normally do with kids into these lessons and into the concert. So what I wanted to share with you today is a sort of composition activity, an arranging activity that gets kids to sort of think about creating in different ways and connecting rhythms with words. And I'll tell you in a little bit how I'm going to incorporate this in my concert, my ideas, and then if you have better ideas, you can obviously share those with me. That'd be great. But I start with my kids by telling them this fictitious story, but they think it's hilarious. I told them that on Thanksgiving, I would go over to my grandma's house. My whole family would go to grandma's house, my cousins and aunts and uncles, and we'd go to grandma's, and grandma would cook all of this food. She would cook turkey, and she would cook ham, and she'd cook roast beef and sometimes prime rib, and she would do baked potatoes and sweet potatoes and mashed potatoes. She'd do cheesy potatoes that went in the oven. Speaking of cheese, she would do macaroni and cheese, obviously, in the oven. She would have blocks of cheese you'd eat with crackers. She would have cheesy crackers, like Cheez-Its. She would have all sorts of vegetables. She would have green bean casserole, and she would have corn on the cob, and she would have carrots, and she would have, oh gosh. And at this point I started asking kids, what else do you think she might have? And they'll start giving me answers of foods that they think would match, which is fun. It's fun to see what they come up with, but it's also fun to enjoy their answers. So I talk with them a little bit about that. I let them come up with some answers. And then I said, and here's what we do. Grandma would make all this food, and we would eat this huge meal. We would have our food, and we'd have seconds, and we'd have thirds. And then after we were done eating, we would go and play card games, and we'd run around downstairs. We'd play outside with the dogs, and then we'd come in for dessert. And then we would do a puzzle with Grandpa, and then we would watch a movie on TV downstairs while the adults were upstairs watching football or something else. And then we would go outside and we'd run around and play on the swings, and then we'd come back in and we'd eat. And then we would play dominoes with Grandma, and then we'd eat another snack. And then we would go and take a tiny little nap, and then when we wake up, we're hungry, so we'd eat again. And then we would go outside, and we'd walk around the farm, and then we'd come back in and we'd eat. And then we'd eat another little bit, and then it was finally time for supper, and we'd eat again and have more dessert and homemade ice cream that Grandpa would make. And it goes on, and kids are like, oh my gosh, you ate so much. And they think that story is funny, and then I'd say, but the next day, when we came back, we'd come to Grandma's house. Gosh, I'm sorry, this is shaking. I'm trying something different with my video, so I'm sorry that you're shaking Facebook. Instagram was like, great. And then we come back to Grandma's the next day, and Grandma would say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're back. And we'd say, we're glad we're back too, and we're very hungry. And Grandma would say, oh, well, do you want some leftovers? And we'd say, no, we don't want leftovers. That's all we had yesterday. We want something new. Grandma would say, oh, okay. And she put a pot on the stove, and then she went to the fridge, and she took the turkey, and she took the beef, and then she took the corn, and she took the green beans, and she took the potatoes, and she threw them in a pot, and she turned on the heat. And then she went and she got some chicken stock, and she got some apples, and she got some pumpkin pie, and she got some salad, and she put that in the pot. And we thought that was gross. And then she took some sweet potatoes, and then she took some cheesy potatoes, and then she took some Cheez-Its, and then she took some crackers and some macaroni, and she threw that in the pot. Grandma put everything in there, everything she could find, everything in the refrigerator just went right into the pot, and she cooked it all together, and she let it stew for a while. And finally, it was steaming, and it did sort of smell good, but we were unsure about it. And Grandma brought us a bowl of this, and we had a little bit. And surprisingly, it was good. It did not look like it would be good, but it was good. So we had some more, and some more, and some more, until we had finished our bowls. And then we asked for another bowl, of course, before we had pie and ice cream. But it was so good. And my cousin said to my grandma, "Grandma, what's this called?" And she said, "Oh, it's stew." And the kid said, No. My teacher at school says that after Thanksgiving break, I have to come back and write about all the food that I've had. And she wouldn't be okay with stew. She said descriptive language. And so I need to know what kind of stew. Is it beef stew? And Grandma said, well, there's beef in it. Is it turkey stew? Well, there's turkey in it. You could call it that. Is it vegetable stew? Well, there's vegetables in it. That did not sit well with my cousin. And so finally, after thinking about all the things that Grandma put in, we finally decided to call it Everything Stew. And then we came up with this little poem. I'm going to see if you can see this. I'm going to try and make it a little darker in here so you can see, if you can see this. I don't know if you'll be able to see this. Oh, maybe. Let's see if you can see that. Oh, it's still really dark. I think the Instagrammers can see it, but let's see if I can make this even better so that Facebook people can see it. Nope. Okay, well, I've got these slides. I'll make these slides available after this is over, but what's on the screen that you probably can't see is that there's a slide that has a little pot with a bunch of vegetables going on, and it says, has a little poem, and I said, we wrote a poem about the song, and it goes like this. Chicken, pepper, cauliflower too. Let's go make some everything stew. And then I have the kids repeat that after. Chicken, pepper, cauliflower too. Let's go make some everything stew. Since these lights aren't working, I'm going to just turn it back on to normal. And so we said the little poem, and Grandma thought that that was so fun. And she said, oh, but the stew's not done. I still have more things in the fridge. And your uncle's going to come in and he's going to be hungry. We need to make more stew, but I'm going to need your help. And so Grandma had us help out with the stew. And she came around to each one of us and said, what will you add to the stew? And on the screen on my smartboard, I have a picture with some food words on it. In fact, I just have little pictures of these cards that have a food word and the rhythm. So like garlic, cheese, baked potato. I have about 6 or 7 options up on the screen on my smartboard so that my kids can sort of see some of the options. Sorry, I'm trying to fix this so you can see a little bit better. So I have those options, and Grandma would come around to each one of us and say, what will you add to the stew? And my cousin would say, I'll put in some apple cider too. Ugh, that sounds gross, but Grandma's stew is always good, so I guess maybe it'll work out being good. Let's see. And then she went around to my other cousin. My other cousin, she said, what will you add to the stew? And my cousin said, I'll put in some macaroni too. And then she went to my next cousin and said, what will you add to the stew? And my cousin said, I'll put in some popsicles too. Oh, that sounded gross, but Grandma's stew always turned out good, so I'm sure she had to add some seasoning or something. So everything stew is what Grandma would make. But you know what? There are way more options than just 6 or 7 foods. That's what I say to my kids. And I say, so now I'm going to need your help. And I want to know, what will you add to the stew? I'll give you some options. And I walk around and I have these little bags, and inside the bags are different cards. I've got 30 different food word cards. And each one has a word and a rhythm, like radish, strawberry, cheeseburger, red pepper, mushroom. I've got lots of different options. So I say to the kids, I want you, in your little group, because when I start this activity, I have them separated out into about 8 different groups. Mostly it's just their family group, their team divided in 2. I start out the class that way. In your little group, I'm going to give you a bag, and I need you to come up with your 5 favorite words. Not 5 per person, but 5 for your group. Choose the 5 favorite that you think would be great in a stew that Grandma might make. So I give the kids a little bit of time, and then I come around and I say, when there's like a minute left, I say, actually, I'm going to need you. I don't know what I just did on Facebook, sorry. I'm going to say, I need you to put those in order from your very first favorite to your least favorite. So if you could just take a second and put those in order from very favorite to least favorite. And kids are like, oh, okay, so they do that. And so then I go around to each group and I say, now you get to add into the stew. Each kid, each class gets, or each little group gets to add into the stew. And I have you have them in order of 1 to 5 because we can only add 1 of each thing to the stew. So if you have them in order, you'll say your top one first. But if the group before you says that one, then since you already have your second option, take out the first option and just go to the very next one. And if some other group says that, well then go to the very next one you have and say that one. And it's very likely that all the groups before you will say all of your things, so probably you'll get to choose one of your favorites. That sort of takes out the like, oh no, they said our thing, what are we supposed to say problem that always happens, or that one, bossy Julie who's like, I'm gonna be the one who decides. Well, if you have them in order already, you'll know where to go next. So I have them put in the order of their top 5, and then we go through and we do that. And I walk around, we say the poem, chicken, pepper, cauliflower too. What will you add? Or let's go make some everything stew. And then I ask each group, what will you add to the stew? And the mini group might say like, we'll put in some blueberries too. And the next one, what will you add to the stew? We'll put in some cucumber too. Whatever they want. I do about 4 of those groups, then we say the poem again. I do the next 4, and then that's the whole class. We made it all the way through. Then I show them a picture on the slide, and I say, up there on the slides, you can see there are scattered out words all over. And that's great. I love being able to look through all the words and see all the different words, but I think that I need you to make them a little bit more organized. And so I show them, instead of just all the jumbled words, I show them a word chain. And there are 4 words on top and 4 words on bottom. And I say, we call this a word chain because we're chaining the words together. And I want you to come up with your own word chain as a group. You need to have 4 words on top and 4 words on bottom. And what is fun about that is that when they do the word chain, in a second they're going to transfer it to a worksheet so that we can document it, not because they need to do a worksheet, but because I want to save it for later. And the worksheet sort of mirrors that with the 4 words on top and 4 words on the bottom. And 2 words together, if you look, 2 words together is 4 beats. So you'll have 4 measures in the end because you have 4 words, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 2 measures on top and 2 measures on bottom. So if you structure sort of that way, they're able to turn that word chain into a composition later. So I say to them, you can put them together however you want. You can have maybe you have breakfast words at the beginning, and then you have lunch words in the middle, and then supper words in the 3rd measure, and then in the 4th measure you have dessert words or midnight snack words. Or maybe you have 2 words that you think go together, like butter and corn, or peanut butter and jelly, or whatever. Maybe you'll put in words that you think would be gross together. Maybe you put popsicle and cucumber together. I don't care. You put them together however you want for your little mini group. So this small group is working together to make these 8 words go together. And when they do that, they end up with their word chain that is a 4-measure word chain. And what we do in the class is that we then we say the poem, we have one group, we read their word chain. We say the poem, we have another group, we read their word chain. And you can do that to go around the room. And that allows everybody to have a chance to show their word chain and show their composition. So what I've done that's sort of special in this lesson that's different than maybe that normal lesson is that then I say, okay, great, and I go around and I hand out these worksheets, and these mirror. They've got a spot here, one for each word, a spot there for a word, and then the bottom. And when it's done, it's going to look something like this. And I'm sorry, I know this is backwards, but you sort of get the idea. So apple pie, pumpkin, sweet potato, butter. And they'll have 4 words on top and 4 words on bottom. And it turns out to be a measure here, a measure here, a measure here, a measure here. My plan is that for the concert, I've given them, like the words that I was showing you today were just a resource I made that has just random any time of the year words. But the words that I gave students for this specific activity are sort of fall or Thanksgiving themed words. So there's a lot more like pumpkin pie, pecan pie, pumpkin latte, or apple spice, or whatever that are, or cranberries, that are more like Thanksgiving themed words. So their compositions are going to turn out to be sort of more Thanksgiving themed. So what I'm going to do for our concert, so that I'm not just standing up and singing only songs and I get to sort of tie in what we're doing in class, is I'm going to display pictures up on the big screen behind students of them actually doing this in class, maybe even show a couple of videos that I've taken of them working in small groups, and then I'm going to have us perform. I'm going to choose one composition from each homeroom, and then they get to say it. I'll project up those words on the screen so that parents will see these things in a row up on the screen while the kids read it. So we'll do the poem and then the words and the poem and the words for the word chain. That's my plan for the concert, for one of our songs for the concert. It makes it easier on me because we don't have to go and spend 10 or 15 minutes in each class like rehearsing this song, because they've sort of taken care of almost all of it and they know the pattern already, and the poem is very easy. But it's something that's fun that they then get to take and run with, and then show their parents a composition that they've made. Now, there are a lot of other things you can do with this resource. If you want, you could have them just sort out the words. These are based on Gunhild Kateman's building blocks, or building bricks, which is, Kateman was a contemporary of Carl Orff, and she helped sort of create the theory and the approach behind Orff, really. And she sort of said that there were these 5 basic blocks. There was ta, ta-dee, ta-dee-ta, ta rest, or half note, and ta-dee, or for you people out there, t-t-t-t, or do-day, whatever you say. But there are these 5 basic patterns that you can find in all things. And so I might have kids sort all of those words into these 5 categories. That's something you could do. You could give kids a lot of other options. You could have kids come up with their own words. Because I'm really limited on time, I don't do that. But I also have a little sorter worksheet that it's a freebie I'll put on link as well, where you can have kids do that. And it gives them a lot of avenues and opportunities for reading. You could have one kid make a word chain and have another kid read it, like a partner kid read it. You could have kids pair up words on purpose they think would be good together or gross together. You can have kids do a lot of things, but ultimately what they're doing is working with the rhythms and working with the words and chaining them together and moving them around. And that's a super cool STEM activity and a lot of critical thinking, but also it's great musically. So it's a really fun activity to be able to do. Why these words? Well, a couple reasons. One reason I limited it, there are 30 words in this set, and I limited it to these words so that there are no words with like a pickup, like croissant. It would be, blueberry or peach. I don't have any words with an anacrusis, so that the kids don't have words that fall outside of that measure or the rhythm. So these words I chose on purpose. I also chose them because there are some words in here that I don't think that a child would come up with maybe on their own right away, like garlic. What kid is going to choose garlic or come up with that word on their own? I mean, some, but it's going to be less often than not. There's some other words in another set, like radish. Kids don't normally come up with those words on their own, so it also infuses in some vocabulary that maybe kids wouldn't have chosen on their own. So that's why I created this set. I have a whole series of these cards. I call them rhythm sorts, and they're in my Teachers Pay Teachers store, but I also have a set that are spring words. So snail and flowers and butterfly and April showers, and I always try to include a picture with them, flower petals, because I had English language learners for so long that I want them to have that word and also the visual. And kids love these little pictures. I also just created one not too long ago with instruments, and this might be fun for, you could sort out by families, you could sort by whatever. Harp, gong, cello, finger cymbals, trumpet, glockenspiel. So lots of fun things you could do with that if you didn't want to do a fall theme or a food theme. I've got like farm and instrument and Halloween and all sorts of stuff. But those are just some of the activities that I do with them. The word chain, the sorting, the putting into different categories, all different sorts of things, because there's so much that you can do with this. And the fun thing is that once I actually took the time to print and laminate and make all of this, it was like, well, that took a long time, so I'm going to use this for everything. So I pull out these cards actually all the time. They get a lot of use because the food and the words is fun for a lot of different grades, and it's really versatile. So in the set that I made, I do have like these worksheets and these sorting options and some of those ideas, but like the poem that we use is not in there. Another thing that I found that I might include, I found this book really super cheap. It's like one of those leveled books. It's called Dad's Vegetable Soup. And they go through and they make, I like to make vegetable soup with my dad. First we have to shop for the vegetables. We need 1 big onion, 2 big peppers, 3 big tomatoes. Obviously it's a counting book. But it goes through. There are so many books like this. Like you could do, any book that involves soup or food or whatever and incorporate this activity as a great extension. So that's just what I'm thinking about doing for my concert. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to go because, who knows? It may sort of flop, but I'm going to try it and I'll obviously report back and sort of share how that goes. But if nothing else, it worked really great for an in-class activity. I did this with my 3rd graders, but I've also done things like this with 4th and 5th and even down to 2nd. You could do it younger, but I think that the challenge there is, can they actually read the words? Like maybe they could see the pictures, but are we working on language or not? What language is appropriate for that? So I sort of skew this a little bit older so that kids who can do the reading or can help others with the reading are actually getting this. Because, it's hard for some kids to read. That's a hindrance, so I don't want that to limit our activity. So those resources I have, I'll put links to those if you're interested. But like I said, I made it once and I use it over and over and over for everything. So I'm trying to, as I come up with more ideas, include those in the the description or the notes or the ideas about how I do that. So that if you were to buy it or get it or whatever, you could see like, oh, I could use it with this poem. Oh, I could use it for this sorting activity. I could make a word chain. I could do whatever. And I'll include this silly poem about Grandma's Everything Stew. I'll include that in the freebie download links today. Let me make sure that I'm getting these questions as I go, because before I go. So if you asked a question, I'll try and answer it here. And if not, I'll come back throughout the week and try and answer your questions. Robert says Danny Elfman and Hans Zimmer, however you say that, are great for movement songs. Absolutely. I think like any soundtrack songs are really fun for those movement activities, like along with the books that I showed you earlier. The Joe poem bugs you too. The rhythm that you don't like the rhythm. Thanks, Tracy. I absolutely agree. I don't know. I just don't like that poem. The poem that's like, hello, my name is Joe and I live in a button or work at a button factory. Your son also thinks everything's stew. Great minds think alike. Thanks to you and your son for watching tonight. Am I presenting at GME in service this year? No, I'm actually going to be at the Missouri Music Educators on the same weekend. So sorry, Georgia, but I'm going to be at Missouri. So if you live in Missouri, hopefully I'll see you there. Let's see. Glad you saw the video, Whitney. I hope this gives you some ideas about how to use these cards if you're interested. Would I share in the notes the movement music you mentioned? Sure, Susan, I can do that. I'll put links to the things that I personally used, or if you want to send me a message, I can send you links to maybe them on YouTube or Spotify or whatever, so you could see that. It's a lot of the same artist, Thomas Newman. I just love his music. That's why I've done a lot of it. Let me just check Instagram and see if there are any quotes in here or questions in here. I'm glad that I'm not alone. You already started your 3rd grade Christmas show this week. It's not just me. Great. It's because of my wonky schedule. I have to do that. Love the music suggestions. Good. I'm glad you like those. They're pretty fun. I need this book for my classroom. Yes, requesting it from your library. You can get a lot of these books on interlibrary loan. You can also get them on eBay pretty cheap, or you can get them on Amazon if you want a new one. I'll just show you those books one more time before I sign off. So the first one I showed you was Stretch by Doreen Cronin and Scott Mention. The next one was Boogie Monster by Josie Bisset, I don't know, illustrated by Kevin Atterbury. And the last one was Czar and the Broken Spaceship by Dina Odell, Dinosaur Odell, illustrated by Santiago Hermano. And I'll put links to all of those so that you can see those. If you're watching this weeks later on YouTube, because I'm posting these on YouTube now, if you follow the link at the bottom of the description, you'll be able to find it. Some people said that they can't watch, that they wanted to watch these videos at school, but their school blocks their Facebook on their filter. So I've been posting them on YouTube too, and you can find them by searching my name if you want to watch these later, or you're like, hey, what was that idea? Let me go see if I can find that. They're available there too. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I'll come back to them and try and answer them as soon as I can. Have a great week, everyone. I'm hoping to podcast this week, so maybe I'll see you then, talk to you then. Thanks so much. Have a great night, everyone.